Everyone wants it, everyone talks about it. But what do we actually need for this game to be a perfect remake? Greetings, I'm Slice, and today I wanted to talk about my own opinion on how to make Resident Evil 5 Remake a perfect remake. Now, don't get me wrong, I was never a huge fan of Resident Evil 5. I personally preferred the co-op experience over the solo experience. And to me, that's what Resident Evil 5 has always been. So this game actually launched in 2009, which was like 15 years ago. So it's been a minute. So there's a lot of people that think this game is too recent, that it looks good enough, it doesn't need a remake. I don't get the whole it doesn't need a remake talk, because it's not gonna replace the original. You can still play the original and never play the remake. It's not gonna like cancel the original game. It's just a chance at remaking the game with, you know, the knowledge of the past 15 years that Capcom has acquired. But that's another topic for another time. This game actually launched with the versus mode, which was never really that great in my opinion. It never really was that popular in the community either. Like, no one even probably remembers the versus mode. But also this game had Mercenaries, which is probably considered one of the best modes in, you know, one of the best versions of the Mercenaries mode, which kind of redefined what Mercenaries means. For the remake to be amazing though, it definitely 100% needs a very good co-op experience. And that's something that Capcom is going to have to do for the first time in years. The last time they did co-op, correct me if I'm wrong, was Resident Evil 6. And that one was kind of a, you know, love it or hate it. The co-op experience in 5 and 6 were pretty good. I personally think it kind of went down in quality with 6, but it was still kind of good. So it's been over a decade since Capcom has done a co-op thing. The closest thing we have to co-op nowadays is Resident Evil 4 with Ashley. And that takes me to my next topic, the AI. That's another thing that people and, you know, members of the community are concerned about, and that is the AI of the co-op partner. So let's say you don't want to play with people online, or you're not able to, or you don't have a separate controller to play with a sibling or something. You can play solo. So in the original game, you would be able to play as either Chris or Sheva, and whoever you don't pick becomes a bot or AI. And people love making jokes about how bad the AI was back in the day, and it truly is, especially if you play on Mercenaries. So the AI partner back in the day, partner that would just kind of get in trouble and not really help. He was just hanging around and not do much. Now, speaking about balancing the game between co-op and single player, now I absolutely love playing Mercenaries, but Mercenaries in RE5 was very obviously only balance for co-op. Like, there is no point balancing in RE5 Mercenaries if you play by yourself. Like, you're never gonna break out of the 120,000 points by yourself. You're gonna be struggling a lot because the game was balanced to have a partner. And if you play with a partner, you can even get like 1,000,000 points if you have a really good partner. And I think that's one of the main things that RE5 Remake is going to have to really, you know, get right, and that is the co-op and single player balance, and, you know, the overall experience of the game, which is not, you know, something that they've been doing. So I'm kind of, you know, I trust Capcom, but that's going to be probably their biggest challenge, and that is balancing the game for both single player and co-op, and primarily co-op because that is the biggest highlight of this game. And yeah, so in short, RE5 Remake is going to need a very solid co-op. Whether they do Mercenaries or not, whether they do Lost in Nightmare or, you know, Desperate Escape, I think the co-op experience has to be good for the main campaign, and then they can worry about DLC. Now let's talk about DLC. So the original DLC for the original Resident Evil 5 was released a couple months / a year later, and that was Lost in Nightmares and Desperate Escape. And you can also get the Mercenaries Reunion if you get the Gold Edition. So Lost in Nightmares was a separate storyline that took place before RE5, and it was kind of a return to, you know, the mansion type of residency type of gameplay, which was honestly amazing, and I to this day don't know how they managed to do it. Like, third person camera angle Resident Evil 1. They've proven that Capcom is able to do it. And also there's a neat little Easter egg in Lost in Namers. If you interact with the door a couple times, you can play with fixed camera angles, and it's surprisingly playable. But yeah, so all of these modes will probably be DLC, much like Separate Ways. Now, Desperate Escape is a mode that took place much like Separate Ways inside of Resident Evil 5, in the events of Resident Evil 5. You can see how Jill and Josh escape and help Chris and Sheva at the end with the final boss, which I won't spoil it in case you haven't played it, but you can watch my whole playthrough of that if you want. It'll be linked on this video. But yeah, I thought it was great, but there's a big chance that they'll include those as part of the campaign, the main story. I would really like to see that, sort of like a, you know, like an Ashley segment sort of thing. That would be amazing. But I wouldn't be surprised if Capcom decides to implement it as a DLC. So, in short, RE5 Remake is going to have to get a really good co-op experience to be as iconic as the original. And honestly, RE4 Remake, love it or hate it, it was a perfect balance between horror and action. And they've proven that they can remake a game from the ground up while still giving tribute to the original work. And I think that's primarily what people want. Of course, it's not going to feel the same as you felt 15 years ago. So keep in mind while playing these games, nostalgia is great, but sometimes it can cloud your judgment. And I think that's something that we all need to keep in mind, that to remind yourself that, yeah, it was great, but you were probably a kid back then, so you were perceiving things differently. So RE5 Remake, whether it happens or not, whether it's Code Veronica, whether it's RE9, I think whatever comes next, I think Capcom will do a great job. And if it's RE5 Remake, I think they will deliver a great experience, just like RE4 Remake was. They've proven that they can do it, and they have pretty much the base gameplay of RE4 to build upon, because RE4 and RE5 are pretty much the same game, except they're co-op. You know, that's the difference. RE5 is co-op and slightly more actiony. It's going to be interesting to see whatever they do next. I don't know. Right now I feel like 6 Remake sounds like a really difficult thing to imagine, but if there's someone who can do it, I think it's Capcom. Now, I'm okay with them not touching remakes for a while, but I'm okay with anything, really. I love Resident Evil, so whatever they decide to do next, whether that's something new or a reimagining of an original thing, I think they'll always deliver something great. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. What do you think Resident Evil 5 Remake needs to be a great game? Do you agree with my opinion? I think the co-op needs to be the highlight of this next game. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.